12 yards, Tim. 12 yards. It seems so simple. It seems so short, doesn't it? But when it comes down to penalty kicks to decide the European Championship, I guess those 12 yards must seem like 1,200. Because judging by what we saw at the end of the Euro final with England and Italy, what did you make of that entire scenario?
Chaos. I just think it's absolute chaos. And we're talking about the final, but I think the story of the whole tournament is the penalties. I don't think very few were convincing throughout the entire tournament. And the final extra pressure, the pressure of being in your home stadium, the pressure put on three young kids, the walk up. I mean, yeah, you say it's 12 yards, but you think about that walk up and it may as well be six lengths, 6 football pitches. It's that, listen, you guys can talk about, tunnel vision and full focus and this and that, but, I mean, it's a different game. It's a different game as soon as that extra time ends and penalties are up. I mean, nerves are through the roof, I'm sure.
Is it all just the pressure? Because typically a penalty kick is not a big deal. Most guys, especially at that level, you can bury it 9 times out of 10. It's got to be the pressure, right?
It has to be. What other explanation is there? I mean, you look at Italy's penalties. Jorginho, who, I mean, pretty certain he's been perfect. He was perfect all season with Chelsea. I'd have to look. I meant to look before we got on here, but I don't know when the last time he's missed them. And I called it. Here comes a hop, skip, and a jump, because that's what he does before. And the keeper, for whatever reason, always goes the wrong way, and Pickford's gone the right way. And so even experience in a guy like Jorginho, you can miss a penalty, and pressure in one of the biggest tournaments in the world, it just builds, and you saw it. I mean, I don't think there's any other explanation. Those two of those guys were subbed on 3 minutes before the end of extra time.
Rashford and
specifically to take a penalty. What other reason is there? So they've obviously worked on it. They've obviously seen things in training that told them, right, these guys are it. These are our go-tos, and that's the nature of professional sports. Pressure gets to some people, and pressure gets to all of us at times.
And to me, what you just said was a pivotal thing when it comes to the strategy behind these particular penalties, because England did have a plan, and Gareth Southgate and his staff watched these guys practice penalties, and they saw who was most efficient, who seemed to have the technique down, and all of that. And Rashford, Sancho, Saku, those guys obviously graded out pretty high. But in your mind, would you take what they did in training without the pressure and value that over a guy who maybe wasn't as technically proficient in training, but just had the experience of playing on the big stage, handling the pressure? Would you have valued that more than the technical side of things?
No. And I'll tell you why. Because penalties are, while yes, okay, you can say, pressure can get to you. Penalties, like a lot of things in life, are just muscle memory. It's having a routine. It's doing the same thing over and over. If you watch 10 out of 10 of Rashford's penalties, he will do the exact same thing. The build up, the number of steps he takes back, the number of steps he takes to the side, to the angle, the number of breaths he takes, the number of stutter steps, everything is planned out and done as a routine. And we've worked on it at Fulham. We do the same exact thing. Guys step up, and we're told and taught and have always done a routine. And in a way that is supposed to bring you back from that little bit of pressure, to bring you back into yourself and say, right, I've done this. I've practiced this over and over and over again. And you know what? Listen, we had Jamie Carragher on a couple episodes ago, and what did he say? He's missed a penalty, and he was late 20s in a huge, in a huge game. So it's not just a experience. I mean, like you said, they had a plan. They knew what they wanted to do, and having extra subs in extra time, it looked like it was gonna pay off for them. And then, like we said, penalties it's just a lottery.
Yeah, it's funny. Michael Owen had an article in one of the European papers.
Yes,
about,
I saw this.
And it was responding to the others, like I think Gary Neville and some who said, well, it should be the experienced guys. Why wasn't, Sterling or somebody like that stepping up and saying, no, let me take it instead of some of the young kids? And Owen said, no, wait a minute. Many experienced players have missed penalties in big moments. And he listed out some of the names. And when you read those names, it's a who's who. And those guys have also missed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I just seen that yesterday, and I thought he's absolutely right. But how can you argue? Listen, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and it's like, oh well, how could he have put that much pressure on these young boys? Well, they played the game. Saka played a good amount of the game, right? He's played the whole tournament. What do you mean? How can you put the pressure on him? He's obviously. There's no such thing as too young or too inexperienced in this game. I know everyone says, oh, he's 19, he's this, he's that. If you're good enough, doesn't matter your age. And quite clearly, they've shown that they're good enough to be in this England squad. Now, had they made their penalties, nobody be saying a word. Would anybody be asking, oh, was it the right decision? Well, do you think they were too young to be taking them? Well, if they would have made them, no one would have anything to say. It's just because they missed them that everyone wants to question, Southgate's decision making.
Right. And it's interesting when you think of just the technique and the execution of a penalty. The proper penalty is one that no matter which way the keeper guesses, you can still make it. If you commit to it, you execute it rightly, you shoot it properly. For instance, the two that England did make, unsavable. Harry Kane buries it in the side netting. Harry Maguire goes upper corner. No way, even with the keeper guessing right, which he did on Kane's, that he's going to make that save. Is that something that players think about in terms of committing to a particular spot, hitting it with authority, doing it in a way that even if the keeper guesses right, I'm still going to make it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to training, back to practice, back to the muscle memory. I found it interesting that Kane chose to go the opposite way of his saved penalty rebound against Denmark. I found it really, really interesting. So I'd love to know which way he had been going in training all through the tournament, just to see if he had switched it up for Denmark or if he had switched it up for Italy. Because let's be honest, his Denmark penalty was not convincing at all. The one in the final, I mean, jeez,
perfect.
You're just inside the post, with pace, with accuracy, and then Maguire's is, I think, a typical center back penalty. You get down, you put your head over it, your knee over it, and you drive it into the goal. And like you said, even if the goalie guesses the right way, you're 9 times out of 10, it's either going to be too powerful to save, or you're going to be diving after the fact and it's already hitting the back of the net. So it's just a practice thing. It's you got to hit it with good pace. And I think again, you can't say the other three had overly tired legs, 2 of them especially, because they'd only come on probably 3 or 4 minutes prior to the penalties. It's just pressure. Pressure does funny things to people in situations, and unfortunately it bit those 3.
When you look at Harry Maguire's penalty and the way he took it, and you think over that sort of a strategy, if you go upper corner like that, the keeper's never going to save it because keepers are always going to dive low. They're going to pick a side. They're going to dive low. So if you go high, you're always going to score. I would assume, tell me if I'm wrong, that players don't choose that because they're afraid of skying it and missing high, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that takes some courage. Yeah. My thought process is, right, if you hit it hard and aim low, if it does get away from you, at least it gets away and it's starting to climb and it's still on target, hitting the back of the net. If you do mishit it, you lean back on it a little bit. If he's purposely hit it there from the get-go, that's got to be one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Because it hit the back of the net. I mean, it took the camera out. They couldn't even use that camera angle anymore after he took that penalty. And it was hit with authority. Like you said, if you can hit him like that, and again, if he hit it on purpose into that upper corner, wow, more power to him because that was special.
Do you have a particular sort of protocol or, I guess, strategy that you follow when you take PKs? I mean, do you do the same thing every time? Do you change it up? What's your procedure?
Yeah, I don't take them.
Well, I mean, if they asked you, if they said, Tim, you're up, you got to take one.
Yeah. Yeah, I
that's good though.
I do.
It does take the pressure off when you don't take.
Listen, it takes the pressure off. No, if they do, yeah, of course you have everybody works on them. It's not, you don't work on them so much in a regular season type situation because the chances of me taking a penalty in the season are slim to none. We have probably 3 or 4 guys who, get chosen and are put up there. Usually your striker, maybe your winger. So yeah, but yeah, of course, everybody has their own little routine. Mine's taking a few steps back on an angle, and taking a few breaths and going from there. I won't give away all of it, but right. Yeah, it is. It's just like I said. I think we're all creatures of habit, and you do a routine so many times. You do a routine long enough, it just becomes almost second nature. So, put the ball down. I put the ball down a certain way. Step back a certain amount of steps. Take a certain amount of breaths, and at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable. I've been here before. I've done this in training loads of times. Now it's just time to execute the strike. And that's that.
If you're a manager, does it matter to you whether it's a forward, midfielder, defender who you're going to have taking them? Because we did see a lot of defenders actually taking spot kicks throughout the tournament.
I don't think you're worried about if it's your striker, defender, midfielder. I think, again, they will have had an idea. Mm-hmm. They will have had every single one of their guys in that squad take penalties and take multiple penalties every single training session. There's no doubt about it. And the analysts and number crunchers and the fine details are paid attention to so much now that they will have had a coach sit there for everybody's penalty and mark down who's gone where and how many times they've gone there, how many times they've made it, how many times it's been saved. And they'll have picked from those numbers, from that data.
Well, once that final penalty was missed and Italy claimed the European crown, that's when things really got ugly for a lot of different reasons. First, you had the chaos of the fans, and that was something that actually started before the game, with fans barreling their way in, several thousand who didn't even have tickets. Then with the players who missed him for England, the online racial abuse that they were getting. And that's something that has continued over time. And it seems like they're still having trouble getting a handle on it and rooting some of these people out and finding a way to stop it. I'm surprised, spending most of my time over here in the States. I was there, as we talked about, in London for the final week of the Euros. You live there in London, but over here in the States, I still find myself surprised that the level of racism is so high, so intense, so widespread, it seems. And the amount of abuse that Rashford, Sancho, that these guys got is startling. Is it as surprising to you still?
This is a tough one, because on the one hand, no, it's not, and I think that's what is so sad and so startling, is that it's for us over here, for the players, for even the media, it's not surprising, and I think that's a huge problem when it's not even, it's almost expected. And it's sickening to even have to think about it, to think what these young kids, I mean, they're Saka's 19, Sancho's 21, Rashford's 23 years old, what grown men and kids and people are saying to these guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, first of all, racism of any sort is appalling. But to then, because someone has miskicked a ball, lost a game, they're being racially abused. It's a game. It's at the end of the day, like these kids they're people. Well, why do they? In what world do they deserve to be subjected to that type of behavior from fans who claim to be fans? Let's be real, they're not really fans; they're just thugs. But I think, yeah, it isn't surprising, and I'll give you a good example. I was doing I'm working on another project, in the community here, and working with schools, and I had a teammate of mine on with me yesterday, doing Zoom calls around classrooms in the UK, and it was about social injustice and racism, and we were asked the same question, and he was at the game, and he said, I mean, it sticks with me. He said, when they stepped up, I thought, please make this, because if you don't, I know what's coming. And I thought to myself, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. Yeah. It's got no place in the world to begin with. But then, like I said, to use it as a tool to get to somebody because they missed a penalty and lost a game. Get out of here. Get rid of it.
And I think it's, first of all, a function of the fact that for some people, the game and sometimes sports in general just occupies a disproportionate level of priority in their lives. I mean, it means more than it should. It's absurd. I saw a quote recently that, yes, maybe something like the European Championship, and for folks in England where football is such a big deal to begin with, that it's the most important of the unimportant things in your life, which I can understand that, but you got to keep that in context, in perspective. And it also ties into all of the fans ahead of the game who were barreling over some of the stewards, who were rushing in without a ticket, who were vandalizing things around Wembley Stadium, who were forcing other people out of their seats who had legitimate tickets, who were injuring others. I think Harry Maguire's dad had his ribs broken by some rowdy fans. I was outside of Wembley a couple of hours before the match started, and there was a big group of Italian fans that were walking down Wembley Way, the famous walkway that leads into the stadium. I'd say there was a dozen or so.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, fans started throwing beer bottles at them. Full bottles of beer, and from long distances. I mean, they were flying overhead. I moved out of the way and leaned up against a wall just so I could, first of all, not get hit, but then see which direction they were coming from, because they were just going every which way. I said, this is insanity.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. And that's what happens when, like you said, this game and this tournament occupies an inexplicable feeling for these people. It's hard to grasp and understand as people, how other people can do that to fans just because they're from a different country.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Like they're coming to do the same thing you're doing, and that's support a team. So they should be subjected to beer bottles thrown, and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, that's unfortunately for anybody who's never seen it, go on to Green Street Hooligans, watch that movie, and that'll explain pretty much what you've experienced on that Wembley way. But yeah, I mean, before the game as well, people rushing. I saw a security, basically a ticket taker, got threatened with a knife and said, "You're going to let me in?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, no problem. Like, it's not. I make £8 an hour. Like, it's not worth being stabbed over. So, go on you go. Don't feel like going to the hospital and bleeding out." Listen, kids witnessed this behavior.
Yeah. Children
were there watching people rush through security, rush past security. I read a story today. A little boy basically was there and told his dad he didn't want to go anymore. He said, "Take me home." He's like, "What is this? This is not okay. Like, take me home. I don't want to be here. I'm too scared to be here and be around this." And I just think that's probably one of the saddest things, that children have to witness this and they grow up seeing this.
Now, over the years, I think that hooliganism in general has been more a function of club competitions in England.
Yep.
You don't often see it with international matches, but I mean, this was a powder keg. All of the elements came together here. The fact that it was on English soil. England hadn't won the big trophy in over half a century, and now here they were, and it made it this situation where the fuse was lit and you were just waiting to see in how many different directions it was going to explode.
Well, let's not forget also that the COVID rules and the number of people that were allowed in stadiums and back into pubs and beer gardens and what have you around the stadium and in and around London, opened up a week or two ago, and able to do and serve and have people back in establishments. So yeah, like you said, it's just a powder keg.
No.
It's everything coming together all at once. And listen, over in England, a little bit of liquid courage goes a long way with football fans. So
yeah,
unfortunately, and we say, I say football fans, the vast majority are upstanding. They enjoy the game. They understand that it's a game. Are they passionate about it? Absolutely. But they're not going to go do some of the things that some of these people did.
Right. And to be fair, I mean, I watched hundreds, probably thousands of people walk by, and they were all proper fans. Nothing wrong with it. There were fans that had been gathering hours ahead of the game. A lot were drunk, but still not doing anything that you would think, is aggressive, volatile, criminal, anything like that. The problem is that while, yes, it's a small minority that do these things, it's still enough that it's a problem. And the optics are bad. It's damaging the reputation of the game and could impact whether or not other big finals come back to Wembley in the future. They have the Champions League final, I think, coming up in 2 or 3 years, and there's some conversation. Well, are we going to have it at Wembley, or are we going to move it if this is the kind of reception we're going to get? So, even though it is a small minority, it's still enough that it's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at, listen, again, it's a small minority ruining it for the vast majority. And that's how it always is. That the upstanding fans who are just having a few pints, a little bit drunk, enjoying themselves, watching the game respectfully, they don't get talked about. You're not going to see them in the media. What you're going to get talked about is the negative. And that's it. From now until forever, that's going to be the case. So what do you do? I think, the fans, the good ones, they have to step up when they see these things and make sure that the other ones don't ruin it, because there's a real possibility that England is going to bid for the 2030 World Cup. And guess what? They've got 4 charges coming against them that have been passed from UEFA to FIFA. And if those 4, well, obviously they've already had the 2 from the booing of Denmark national anthem and the laser during Kane's penalty on Schmeichel. So they've got those 2 there. They've got 4 more in the final. You're looking at potential fan bans in stadiums for qualifying. And then what? The next step is you're going to be docked points. The next step is you could potentially miss out on the 2022 World Cup.
Yeah.
So you're ruining it for the team, and you're ruining it for the rest of the country and the upstanding fans.
Competitively, looking ahead now for England, there was obviously massive disappointment that they did not win this edition of the Euros on their home turf. Next up, they've got the World Cup along with everybody else next December in Doha. And I guess the good thing for England is they don't have to wait too long for another major international competition. It's going to come up pretty quickly. And if you're an England fan, it's still a bright future. This is still a young team. There are other young players who didn't really even feature for Southgate in a lot of these matches who are probably going to be included because they'll be in a better position once that World Cup comes around. So, the chance to end that drought that has stretched over 50 years is still pretty good when you look ahead, given the nucleus, the depth, and really the identity shift that this team seemed to go through at this tournament. If they remain as tight and as on the same page as they seem to be here, I think you got to consider them one of the big favorites going to Doha.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Listen, that the way that team operates is not going to change because they lost out on a Euro Cup final. They're as we mentioned before, it's just a different feeling around this squad. They're close. They're friends on the pitch. They're friends off the pitch. They just have a real special bond right now. And I don't see that changing. I don't see listen, I don't see the whole squad changing all that much, to be honest with you. If majority of those guys are all playing at their club teams, I see that same, that potentially, 1 or 2 changes, but the majority of that team is going to be the same come next November. And that's another, listen, they have the tournament experience. They've lost in a final. They can use that to their advantage, going into qualifying and then going into the World Cup.
Here's something interesting to think about. One team that they could perhaps come up against in Doha is the U.S. How do you think that the current U.S. team, the way it's set up right now, we don't obviously know who's going to be on the final roster, but given all of the strides that have been made on this side of the Atlantic with the U.S. team, how does it match up against a team like England right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think we have the same kind of bond. All these guys, and I see it every time I'm in. It's just a friendly group, and nobody sees anybody as better than the rest. While we all know who's better than the rest, there's just no egos, and I think it's very similar to the England squad in that aspect. There's very very little clickiness.
Mm-hmm.
Guys can go out and we go out for walks and go out and grab a bite to eat, and it's different guys in every single time. Young guys, old guys, myself. It's just real. It's real special to be a part of a group that has a bond like that. That the egos get put aside when they come in camp, and everyone's just happy to see each other. It really is like a big brotherhood, and that's the way we try to treat it and make sure that culture stays the same. In terms of skill and club wise, I mean, listen, we got guys, some of the biggest clubs in the world. If we can continue to gel, guys like Christian, Zach, Weston, Serginho, Tyler. I mean, all these guys are playing at Champions League clubs every single year. You give us another year to gel. There's no telling. And then I think that the 2026 is going to be the one, though. I think that's the one everybody's. 2022, where obviously these guys want to do something special. But 2026, I think, is the when it's going to be in the U.S. is what everyone's really got their eye on.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a long way away, but it's really not. And when you're putting the pieces together and laying out the road to get there, I mean, I think a lot of things are coming together, and you'll probably learn a lot about the team. And, Greg will have some more experience with the group after, this World Cup cycle. And then, boy, with the World Cup on home soil for the first time since 1994, when, let's face it, the situation was completely different, going into 2026, just imagine the atmosphere, the scenarios, and the expectations.
I mean, I think the expectations are already there. Like I said, with the guys we have, the guys that are playing at the Barcelonas, the Juventus, the Chelseas, the Man Cities, it's the expectation is already there, and it's down to the team to live up to that and to perform to that. And that's what we strive to do every single time we're in camp together. And we have our group chats and guys are throwing messages back and forth and talking about different things. And so I mean, listen, that 2026 on home soil for a lot of these guys, they're going to be right in their prime. They're going to be 26, 27, 28 years old. And gonna be wanting to prove and show the world that we are a power, and I think if we continue to progress with Greg and assuming he sticks around for another cycle, and even if he doesn't, whatever manager comes in after that continues to develop these guys and guys continue to understand the nuances of international football. And what it takes to play in CONCACAF. There's no doubt that we can change everything in a heartbeat. When
you mentioned the group chats and what you guys talk about, and obviously you've had conversations about hosting it in 2026, the U.S. over the years, going back to World Cups, have gone into some of those events not with the expectation of challenging to win the World Cup. A lot of times we've heard the narrative is just, let's get out of the group stage. Let's get to the single elimination. Have you talked about what your ultimate goals are going to be for 2026? Do you expect to be challenging to win the World Cup at that point?
I Man, I don't even expect to be there. I'll be 39 years old. Not a chance.
As a team, as a nation, as a group, you get what I'm saying, right?
yeah. Of course. Not. Yeah. I mean, it's. I wouldn't say it's discussed explicitly. I wouldn't say we've said, right, we need to be getting here. I think it's one of those things when you have a good team, you have a good group, you have a good nucleus, you have a good dynamic within, from top to bottom, guy number 1 to guy 23. I think it's just understood where guys want to be. And listen, all these guys are ambitious. If they weren't ambitious, they wouldn't be at the Chelseas, the Man Cities, the Barcelonas, the Juventuses. So just getting to a World Cup is not good enough. Just getting out of the group isn't good enough. These guys want to go and do something. They want to. I mean, one of our things is changing the way that people see this team and the U.S. Soccer team as a whole, and soccer in America as a whole. Right now everyone just sees it as like, oh, it's MLS is nice, it's growing, the sport is growing, but it's not quite there. We're out to change that, and going into the World Cup in 2026, I think that's when that sea change is going to be. Wow, these guys are here, and every single week there's guys moving to Europe now, it seems. Mm-hmm. I just saw a few guys transfer out of MLS this week. One of them was just today, with other ones being linked. So, I mean, I think more and more teams, more and more, European teams are seeing that it's definitely gonna be changing here pretty quick.
Well, one player you probably will not have to deal with at the 2026 World Cup, can't say for sure, but probably not, is Lionel Messi. He finally won his first major senior international trophy with Argentina on Sunday in the Copa final, beating Brazil in Rio de Janeiro. It was maybe the biggest day of soccer in I don't know how long, when you consider the fact that you had the European Championship in London featuring England, and then you had the Copa with the two teams everybody wants to see play in the final every year, Brazil against Argentina in Brazil. Messi had been 0 for 4 in big finals. The only knock against him in his entire career, he hadn't won anything in the Argentina shirt. He finally got it done.
Incredible. I'd love to stand up, give him a standing ovation. Arguably the greatest, one of the greatest, if not greatest, of all time. And like you said, the only knock he had was he could never get it done for country. Now, obviously, it's only Copa America. It's not the World Cup, but we say it's only Copa America. It's again, it's a huge deal down in South America, and the fact that they beat Brazil, who were, I'm pretty sure, overwhelming favorites to win that tournament this summer, is special for him, and he's finally kind of got that monkey off his back. And it's funny, I've looked at social media and seen pictures, and it just looks like he's just a weight's been lifted off his shoulders. I don't know that I've seen him smile as big as I saw him smile with that trophy, on Sunday.
He wanted it so bad, and he obviously has the love for Argentina, and he'd accomplished everything else with Barcelona, and he's been carrying the tag as perhaps the best player of all time, but in a weird way, he wasn't always considered the most beloved player in Argentina. That was Maradona. But if you look at the stats, Messi's numbers blow away Maradona's. It's not even close when you look at the goals, the assists, the trophies, the records. But Maradona had that one signature mythical moment at the World Cup back in the 80s. And because of that, he was beloved forever. And Messi hadn't had that signature moment for Argentina. And to be honest, he hasn't had any signature moments in finals for Argentina. Hasn't played necessarily that well. But he finally gets the victory. that validates everything else. Was it fair? Was the criticism, on point that, well, he hasn't won anything for Argentina, so he can't be considered that great? No. It's like, remember, the conversation we always have in the U.S., well, this coach or this player hasn't won an NBA title or a Super Bowl. There's so much that goes into it in team sports that one player can't control. If he had never won anything with Argentina, could still be the greatest of all time. But now you can put that to rest. He's checked the box.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's never going to be the personality of Maradona. It's just not. I don't think anybody is. It's just the way he carried himself. He was a bit crazy, but lovable. He just had that perfect combination that endeared him to fans and people everywhere. Messi, I just with the goals, the assists, the trophies at Barcelona, now, like you said, he's got that international trophy. I saw today something from somebody said he could win 4 World Cups and still never be as great as Maradona. So listen, it's all opinion. You know what I mean? It's one person, myself, could say, yeah, he's probably going to go down as the greatest ever, and another person could say, well, no, he's not. So-and-so is, and that's fine. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that we can sit here, you can have a debate, and you can argue, who's better, him, Messi or Ronaldo, who's better, Maradona or Pele. Like, it's just, the debate rages on, and it always will, until the next absolute phenom comes flying out of wherever and dominates the game for the next 15 years. And it's incredible.
To complete the circle of this entire conversation we've been having, if you think about it, we started with the PKs, and one of the reasons Messi went into this Copa not having won a major title is because, if you remember, at the Copa Centenario that was played in the U.S., the final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey went to PKs. Messi was the first penalty taker for Argentina. What did he do? He put it over the top of the net. He missed.
Gets to everybody.
Yeah, we were talking about pressure. Everybody misses, right?
What everybody misses. So it doesn't matter. One of the greatest goal scorers of all time, the most skilled player, probably someone who has, his penalty kick routine down, and he could do it in his sleep. You still miss. Pressure gets to everyone. It just hits people at different times, and you just never know when it's going to bite you.
It's really, it's so tough, though. I mean, you try to process it, and that's what you're left with. I mean, I saw where Rashford and Sancho went away on vacation together now. They're in the Turks and Caicos now on holiday. Yep. But, the last memory they have is missing those kicks and just living with it and mentally, psychologically trying to be okay with that, process it, I guess, mourn it, and then get over it. Boy, that's got to be something.
It is, and that is the life of a professional athlete. You can have however many games you want and be the man of the match in every single one, and all it takes is one kick, and you have gone from riding high to being lower than you could possibly be, that you could ever possibly think to be. And that is what professional sports is. So when everybody jumps on these guys and jumps on athletes, oh, you were this, you were that, they don't remember the good times. They only remember the bad plays. And I think, unfortunately, that is the career that we chose. And I say this all the time. If I can, I will push my child to not follow in my footsteps, because it's awful. It really is. And kids, they see these things, and it won't just affect Rashford and Sancho and Saka. It'll affect their family as well. It'll affect their friends. They'll all be affected by the miss, by the loss, by the chance slipping away to make history, and they'll be affected by the racism. And that's, people don't realize that you're not just coming at the players. Families see these things, and friends see these things, and kids see these things, and it affects everyone. I mean, I'll give you a quote here, and this sums up, why I think it just needs to end. And I mean racism, the online abuse, just everything. There's a little boy over here, and I need to make sure I say this right. Again, I saw it on social media. His dad posted it, and he said, the last thing my boy said to me tonight was, "What if they treat me like Saka? I'm just like him, and we both play for Arsenal. I don't think I want to play for England. Will you talk to them if they ever ask me?" The boy is 8 years old. 8 years old. And he's talking about racism. He's talking about all these people saying these things to these kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's the saddest thing, that this boy doesn't want to play for his country because of, I can't even say the word that I want to say. Right. I really like it. It makes my blood boil, and I really want to say like some really, really bad language, but I'll save that. It needs to end. It needs to end. There's no place for it, and to hear kids, say things like that, it's heartbreaking.
Well, hopefully, it will come to an end. It's occurred over generations, so obviously it's not a quick fix. Players have been taking the knee before matches for a long time, and you've seen some fans even boo that. They seem like they're getting tired of it, but you know what? As long as it continues, taking the knee and doing things has to remind people why they're doing it, why it's important. And so, step by step, right?
That's it, yeah. And I think that the biggest thing is making sure that this, the young kids, the youth, the next generation, they understand that, their voices are powerful. I mean, when I read that from this little boy, like that hits me. It really hits me. And I think, people look to athletes, people look to, the politicians and social media platforms and the companies to make changes. But I mean, the changes start with everyone. Like I said, the more that we can speak to kids, and the more they speak up for themselves, and the more they speak up for their friends and for all the wrongs that they see, I think that's, hopefully that's a start to big changes, here and in the near future.